day, my name is Hatu and welcome to the Asian Agribees podcast. This is a podcast about alternative feed ingredients. My colleague Aika Arias-Gado will talk to Dr. Rommel Sulabo about the demand, drivers, and the potential sources of these materials. Professor Sulabo is a lecturer of monogastric nutrition. He is also the current director of the Institute of Animal Science of the College of Agriculture and Food Science at the University of the Philippines Los Baños.
So, Doc, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Aika. How about you?
Oh, I'm good, Doc. I'm good. So, okay, to set things up, first, why is there demand for alternative feed ingredients? What are the main drivers for this innovation?
Well, I think the answer to that question is cost. So in the past decade or so, production cost has been increasing tremendously. And for poultry producers and livestock producers, our effort in reducing production costs has always focused on how we can reduce feed costs. And so alternative raw materials are often ways that we can hopefully reduce diet costs. And I think that's the main driver. And I think the second driver here is, which I think is unique for the past few years, is with the pandemic that has directed the industry in experiencing some very unique challenges like importation of raw materials, that there are materials that we cannot import as much as we can in previous years, like wheat or soybean meal. And many countries have looked inwards and they saw the importance of achieving animal feed security as a way of ensuring supply of pork and poultry products. And so I think these two things have really driven significant interest in alternative raw materials.
Okay, thank you, Doc. So, but in the Philippines, what are the alternative raw materials being utilized and how are they sourced?
Well, we can divide this into two. So there are traditional alternative raw materials that have been available for a long time, and this would be rice co-products, so which are byproducts of the rice milling industries. We have coconut co-products, which is a major where coconut oil is a major export of the country, and so that provides us also an opportunity to source plenty of coconut co-products. And then from flour production, we also have different wheat co-products, and then although we do not consider it as a byproduct, but cassava is also an alternative raw material, especially when we look for alternatives to corn, or if there are issues related to the supply of wheat. So those would be the primary, the traditional alternative raw materials that we would use in the diets. And they're often sourced from suppliers. So suppliers are quite plentiful in the country. So those would be where we would source these alternative raw materials.
Okay, so now we know what these alternative ingredients are. So now, Doc, what is the acceptability of using such raw materials in the industry? Are there many producers willing to adapt?
I think in terms of acceptability, it is of varying degrees, because one of the challenges that we know about alternative raw materials is that, yes, they may be cheaper in price, but we have to deal with the variability that's related to this material. So we often would consider ways of how we can mitigate the effects of variation. So there have been a number of investment in technologies that would allow us to reduce variability in these materials and accounting for the variability in these materials. So if we do have the technology that allows us to increase the utilization of byproducts in feed formulation, but if we cannot access this type of technologies, then often the utilization of byproducts would be limited. So I think that would be one of the major challenges that we would normally have in the use of alternative raw materials.
Okay, so when it comes to the nutritional value, are there any discrepancies if alternative ingredients are used? If yes, what are those discrepancies in the nutritional value?
Well, majority of the alternative raw materials that we use are high fiber ingredients. And when we use high fiber ingredients, the question will always be focused on energy. So often we would say that the high fiber ingredients dilutes dietary energy. And so we try to account for that by using different types of technologies where we could improve the nutritional value or the energetic value of the diet. And that could be through enzymes and applications of feed enzymes or applications of other feed additives that can enhance the digestibility of high fiber ingredients. Then there could be technologies that we could employ in terms of the process. Some of these alternative ingredients are further processed, like let's say through fermentation. Fermentation is a good way of improving the value of high fiber ingredients because it increases energy digestibility. It can potentially also improve amino acid digestibility of some of these byproducts. So I think that is an investment that we could put in so that we could maximize the utilization of byproducts.
Okay, so will alternative feed ingredients be able to address the production problems of high feed costs if the acceptability is varying, as you have mentioned earlier? So why or how should this be addressed?
Now, I think with the technology that we have, we can use different technologies in formulating diets, like using NIR technologies to account for the variation of materials that comes into the feed mill. That can allow us to reduce the effect of variation. And then if we can use prediction models to predict the value of each individual batch of materials that comes into the feed mill, that can also help us reduce the impacts of variation. If we use all of these technologies, then that would allow us to maximize the use of byproducts, and that could potentially reduce production costs. But always we have to tie it in with impacts on the processing, manufacturing, and obviously performance of the animals that we feed. Because at the end of the day, the goal is how we can maximize the use of these byproducts without impacting performance and hopefully increase profitability of the enterprise.
All right, thank you very much, Doc Sulabo. So, is there anything you want to add to what we have talked about?
I think all of us, all of the animal industries within the ASEAN region, has been focused on ways we can reduce costs. And alternative feed ingredients is a short-term and can also be a long-term solution to this problem. But there are challenges that we know. We know that there are a number of issues related to the use of byproducts. But I think it's just a matter of technology for us to be able to maximize its use and to allow us in the future to fully unlock the potential of many of these alternative feed ingredients in our diets. So I think that will be a major work that we need to continue on moving forward.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Asian Agribees podcast. We hope this episode gave you more insights on alternative feed ingredients. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more on the Asian animal protein industries, please visit www.asian-agribees.com.